And it's appropriate. So. It's appropriate.
And I truly believe what you just said. I think everything we do impacts negatively or positively, and I'd like to be able to say that it's positive. If you see a need, try and fill it. And that's some of the things I want my students to know. And that's why I said that list that I made of the 5 things that I am, it helps me to remember things. You know, in my mind, you know, as a father, I want to make sure my kids are taken care of. And so here's a father who's in a place he can't really help. There's nothing else he can do. I gave that child something. Now they can stay at the stadium a little bit longer. They can enjoy what was going on. That atmosphere that was present at the stadium between, you know, 2 rival teams. The whole, you know, football atmosphere. I wanted to enjoy that. And so in a way, I felt like that was the moment. But little things like that happen a lot in your life. I think you just have to be prepared to take advantage of those.
You know, my father said, success, I'm sure it wasn't his quote, but he said, success is when preparation meets opportunity. You just have to keep preparing because opportunity comes along every moment.
Yep.
Are you prepared to take advantage of it or not? And I applaud your preparedness.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And I tell my students a lot of times, that is absolutely true. If you're going to get anywhere in life, you have to prepare yourself to take advantage of the opportunities when they come. And I feel like I've done that my whole life. I may not use all the education I have, but I educated myself to the point where if it's needed, I can help somebody out. Same thing with I think my attitude towards being in the assembly or being an elected official. I need to prepare myself. I need to find out all the tools that are available to me. So again, what I can do is help my constituents. I'd be wasting my time if I didn't do that. I'd be wasting their time if I didn't find all the tools out there that I can use to help them out. And that's not just helping them with their daily lives when somebody comes to me with a problem. That's also talking about policy at the state level, making the right decisions on what policy to pass and what policies not to pass. Thinking about not just my constituents in my district, but the Nevada, you know, constituency as a whole. And I work for the state of Nevada, not just that little part of Las Vegas that I represent. I've got to keep that in mind.
Well, you represent Pahrump and the whole southwestern corner of Nevada.
I don't know if I represent Pahrump. Hold on.
No, it's all the way to the border. I looked at
it's not Pahrump. It's not Pahrump. I know that for a fact.
Okay.
It's a very large district, not as large as some
right up
rural.
to Death Valley, right?
In some cases, yeah. I don't know how far up that way. I do know. I mean, I know my district pretty well, and that doesn't sound familiar to me. But I do. I mean, again, my district is large compared to the rest of them here in Las Vegas. Not as large as some of the rural districts, but my district is the largest by population. By population, I have I think 256,000 constituents in my area, which is as large as some of the congressional districts. That's just the way it panned out after the last redistricting in 2001. But I do represent people down in Sandy Valley. I represent people in Indian Springs where I work. I represent people here along the 215, some parts of Rhodes Ranch, Mountain's Edge, Town Center down there, the Ridges. I mean, all along here, I represent a lot of different people. And I think my life, in particular, where I was raised, how I was raised, that has helped me to understand my constituency. I mean, I could be with people here in the Ridges, you know, in a very affluent area, and spend time at a luncheon with them and talk about issues that concern them and be comfortable. But I can go out to Sandy Valley and to go to a barbecue out there and feel just as comfortable talking to them about rural issues because growing up in Alaska in the middle of nowhere.
Well, Fairbanks isn't nowhere.
Well, I grew up in Delta Junction, which is south of Fairbanks, which is
kind of nowhere.
Yeah, it may not be in the middle of nowhere. You don't have to fly into Delta Junction as you do with some of the other areas like Barrow and so forth. But it's still, you know, when you're in Delta Junction, it feels like you're a million miles away from everything else, which is fine for some of those residents who like to be a million miles away from everywhere else. It's a beautiful place.
What was the first service project that you ever worked on?
You know what? I'll tell you. I do remember. The very first service project that really made a great impact on me, I was in third grade, Miss Bomer's class, and there were, in any typical elementary school, you've got your, the sink in the back of the classroom where you can wash up after an activity. And so Miss Bomer had made that assignments to clean up different parts of the room. We had a game area, so after, you can go play games, whatever, somebody had to go clean that up. Well, I remember there was 3 of us. Rosemary Foster, I don't know if I should use first and last names, but it's probably changed mine now, but Rosemary Foster, Mike Marshall, myself, and I think there was Rex, and I can't remember if it was Rex or somebody else, but there was, I think, 4 of us actually back there, and our job was to clean the sink area. And we started talking about what a great teacher Miss Bomer is, and we should do something for her. And it was funny because what I learned there is all you have to do to get something done is have one thought. And then you take the next step after that, and then the next step, and then things just sort of happen. If you have that one thought and you say to yourself, I want to get this thing done, then you start thinking about the little things you need to do to get the next step done, and then the next step. So we sat there, it probably was a 10-minute job that we finished, but while we were talking, we said we had to do something for her. And so we said we had to have a party and do something really nice for her. Oh, at the party we ought to give her a gift. And it just kind of escalated from there. And the next thing I know, we conspired with our parents. One of us or several of us went home and started talking to parents, and the parents said, that is a good idea. She was such a good teacher. She made such a big impact on not only ourselves, obviously, but our parents. So by the time January, February came along, we just all loved her so much. And so we decided that we were going to make her some clothing. We're going to make her a skirt. Back then, a lot of the mothers were into sewing. It was big, and plus they had those acrylic paints. I remember those, those tubes that my mother would have, and she would make designs on things. So we said, all right, we're going to get her something. We'll all make a design, and then we'll have one of our mothers make it into a skirt. Put the waistband on and all that stuff, and then we'll give her as a present. We'll have a surprise party. So we're going to give her a gift. We're going to have a little party. We need to get food. These are all third graders, and we're planning this party out. We're doing it because we want to tell our teacher we love her and that we appreciate it and all that stuff. And so, we're sitting there talking to our parents. The most vivid memory I have, and I thought about it years later, is we all did a design on this, I think it was burlap sack material, although I'm sure it wasn't burlap sack because our parents would never let us, use burlap sack. But it just, in my mind, I just thought, well, it wasn't we picked it out, and our parents, they, bless them, they just said, go ahead and go with it, But it wasn't probably the prettiest material, but we all had made these really crazy designs with all kinds of colors. So it was like, the Technicolor Dream Coat, all these different colors that probably didn't match. It was probably the most hideous thing. I don't know. I just remember we had our principal, Mr. Picado, he called her down. The ruse was to call her down to the office, set everything up, and then when she came back, we'd be able to yell surprise and then give her a gift and all that stuff, and that's what happened. But my recollection of that day was solidified when I met Miss Bomer years later. I think I was a junior or senior in high school, and I saw her again. I saw her at a store, and we relived that day. And I said, I take it you don't wear that, that hideous thing. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm older. I'm thinking, wow, what did we do? What did we make you? It must have been hideous. And she's, she was laughing the whole time as we were reliving this day. And then as soon as I said, you probably don't wear that, she just became somber. She looked me straight in the face and she said, I take that out once a year. I wear it. I cry a little bit of happiness. And I remember that somebody cared about me, still does. And I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world. And so when you talk about how we have an impact, we do. And she shared that with me, and I'm glad she did, because you would never know you have an impact until somebody shares that with you. So you're right, maybe that girl years later, she's probably in college now.
Telling the story to everybody. It's how some great sweet guy gave her a coat when she was freezing in Vegas.
We do. We have an impact on each other's lives, and I think it's our obligation to do that, to make each other more comfortable in our lives. Service is the rent we pay. And so I still remember that. That was my first big service project.
Why did you originally decide to run for the assembly?
Again, my wife. You know, she said, remember I told you a story that she said you'd be good at two things. She said teaching is one and politics is another one. It's not like we have a love affair with politics. It's just that, you know, politics isn't necessarily the way it's turned into to be now. I think a lot of times people are groomed for politics, and it's become this position that you want to have because it's good to put on a resume, or it's the position to have. It seems like it's so fun for some of these young guys coming up. They think that it's supposed to be fun. It's a great fun position to have.
I think they're looking to line their pockets and the pockets of their cronies.
You may be right. I just know that if you look at it a different way, it's not a glamorous position. It's a position that you can help people. It's a position that, quite honestly, our forefathers, I think they planned for all of us to give public service, to contribute in that way, to know that it's not easy to be a public official, a public servant, because there's some hardships, but then to go back into regular life, experience what it's like to give, to just give of yourself for a while and then go back to your life. But it helps build character. And so my wife said, when we're first, like third or fourth year of marriage, she said, you're going to be a really good teacher, but I see you as a really good, public servant. And I think this is your avenue. This is what you excel at. This is who you are. And so you need to develop your talents. With her encouragement, I decided to run for office.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned so far in your service to the state?
That 4-month session is a very difficult session because it's so tiny a window to get answers and solutions to very difficult problems. It's very draining on elected officials because we have so many concerns in that 4-month period. 120 days. I'm sorry. 120 days. We got a lot to do in that 120 days, and it's all.
If it doesn't get done, it doesn't get done.
It doesn't get done, and I know that that's the appeal to some people. I've been teaching Nevada Constitution for a long time, and I think I've got a pretty good sense of the mentality of Nevadans, not just in the present but in the past. And I think the mentality has always been, keep it to 120 days. If you keep the politicians there any longer, they might screw up the state. So if you only have 120 days to get things done, you don't get it done, so be it. Maybe it was not meant to be. And I understand that because out here, our culture was the rough and tumble, rugged individual, the Western frontier. We can take care of ourselves, and that does appeal to me. At the same time, the population has increased tremendously. The issues are more complex, perhaps. At least there's more of them, if they're not more complex. And it just, it's hard to get done in that 4-month period. But I'm not advocating, one thing or another. I'm just saying that realization hit me as we're, spending hours and hours every day. And I knew that was going to happen. I mean, it's not like I all of a sudden discovered, I'm going to be working hard. I knew I was going to be working long hours. It's just the number of issues. I think that hit me smack in the face. There's that many issues out there. And quite honestly, when you have a citizen legislature, as we do, myself coming in as a teacher and becoming a state legislator, it's hard for me to know every single one of those issues with the detail that's necessary to address them. So I had to spend a lot of time just getting background on a lot of the issues. And that's where a lot of my time, if I wasn't in the legislative building, then, I was,
in
researching.
In Google,
or asking the Legislative Counsel Bureau to do some research for me and then going over their research. I'd spend time also with certain lobbyists that were really steeped in knowledge about issues. I think that lobbyists have a negative connotation nowadays, and I don't think that's always deserved. Some of the lobbyists that work here are individuals who care about their particular interest, but they also care about the interest of Nevada and getting it right. And they have a lot of knowledge. You as a legislator coming in as a citizen legislator, it's not bad to tap into their knowledge, find out what they know. They're not going to lie to you.
Well, I don't know
They're
if
not
I
going to lie to
agree.
you all the time. Let me paraphrase. They're not going to lie to you all the time. They have interests, yes, but if they lie to you and you find out about it, you don't trust them anymore. If you don't trust them anymore, you don't seek their advice.
They're unemployed.
They're unemployed. There are mechanisms other than the artificial mechanisms that we introduce. Mechanisms like they have to report money that they pay. That's good because I like that it cleans up that relationship between legislator and lobbyist and lets the citizen back home know that there's nothing going on. But there's other mechanisms that are part of the system.
Well, it's appropriate that you lean on them to educate you. You just have to take what they say with a grain of salt and understand that they have an interest in you believing a particular thing.
Right. So if I come back and I get the LCB, the Legislative Council Bureau, they have a division where they'll help you do research. If I have them do it, and they're independent, nonpartisan, they're very good at their job. We really need that LCB up there. They help legislators tremendously. If they give me something to read, I read through it and I see something on there. So now I have some background. Now I can go to a lobbyist who, lobbies for, whatever interest, and I say, I've read this. Can you enlighten me a little bit more about this? And then, take it with a grain of salt. Maybe you go ask somebody else who's not affiliated with that interest group or that lobbyist corps, and ask them. And so you're sort of checking and rechecking and making sure that all the information you get is corroborated, I guess. And then